Hey there, and welcome back to another Miraculous Ladybug Season 2 Retrospective review, where I go through old episodes of Miraculous I never got to make a video on and give my thoughts. Season 2 has so far very much lived up to its legacy as one of the best of all time, with a whole heap of classic episodes and big moments, and I hope this episode is no exception as we come to Maledictator, which I do recall being a big Chloe episode, but that's about it. I'm sure I'll get salty at how they wrote Chloe here as opposed to what she later becomes, but that's as usual for my Season 2 retrospectives. Generally, I've tried my best to move on from that story because we're coming up to 7 years since it took place, and so why bother continuing to be massively salty about it, you know? Here though, I give myself grace and let myself feel those feelings once more, so without further ado, let's jump into it. We start off the episode following Chloe, who's dressed up as Queen Bee, and doing a mock TV interview as her hero persona on a pretend news channel called Chloe TV. It's presented as a sort of behind-the-scenes day in the life. She says she's going to be giving advice to all her fans, including her dear friend Ladybug, who just showed up. Here it cuts to Chloe dressed as Ladybug, blowing smoke up her own ass about how Queen Bee is clearly the most important hero in Paris, and how she'd never get herself into trouble like Ladybug and Cat Noir, yada yada yada. On the surface, it's not so bad, because I figured she was just having some fun, like when she hangs out with Sabrina and dresses up as a hero to play around. Then, as she's laughing with Ladybug, you hear Ivan's angry voice shout out, "That's not Ladybug, that's you." This is when it's revealed that Chloe is straight up showing this video to her whole class. Yes, she made a superhero dress-up roleplay video for a class project. It is next level cringy, especially when she's claiming that Ladybug herself features in the video, and yet it's simply her in a costume change. I actually can't believe she'd do this, but I suppose that's what happens when you're absurdly out of touch, right? The whole class laughed at Ivan's remark, except for Marinette, who's salty at this whole thing, Adrian, who's just looking amused but a bit awkward, and then Ivan himself, who looks really angry. I suppose he's mad that she tried to trick them all. I do wonder how the hell she possibly thought this was going to work out, though. She barely puts any effort into making herself look like Ladybug, to the point that, as Alia said, she didn't even bother with a dark wig, and when Alia calls her out for this, she claims that Ladybug dyed her hair to make herself look more like Chloe. So Chloe has decided to do a class project about an important French historical figure on herself, a person who only had superpowers briefly, very recently. She also openly states that Ladybug and Cat Noir are incompetent and are always getting themselves into trouble that Queen Bee has to save them from, and also obviously thinks that everybody in the class is an absolute idiot, because otherwise how could she believe they'd fall for this obvious deception? The class then starts teeing off on her. They all point and laugh, including Sabrina, with numerous class members like Marinette, Alia, and Alex all snarky at her too. Alia also hijacks the class by playing the video of Queen Bee getting reamed out by Ladybug on the projector. So Chloe is utterly humiliated. And it's only at this point that Miss Bustier steps in to stop it all. And look, Chloe's clearly being a fool and a cretin in this scene, but Miss Bustier needs to seize control of the damn class. How many insults and threats were thrown back and forth before she did anything at all? Come on now. Chloe storms out whilst Marinette sighs that, she'll never change, which is obvious foreshadowing for Chloe actually starting to change. It's a slow process after all. In the city hall, Mayor Bourgeois is conducting a civil wedding service and pronounces the happy couple husband and wife, which is when both Audrey and Chloe burst in and demand they leave because they have things to complain about. Here we learn that Audrey wants the entire school closed down, whilst Chloe wants Marinette specifically banished from Paris. I do wonder why she hones in so much on Marinette here. Yeah, she said that Chloe didn't deserve to be a hero, but Alia was coming at her just as much in that whole debacle. Andre, for once in his life, seems to have a bit of a spine, as he begs them to understand that he doesn't have the power to permanently shut down the school. He's only the mayor after all. He tries to suggest that maybe they switch schools instead, but this isn't good enough for her, nor Audrey, as they're clearly out for blood. Seeing that he won't use his power, they decide to move to New York City, and will leave him behind in Paris. To try and make it up to her, he offers Chloe a diamond-encrusted phone case to buy his way out of trouble, but she rejects it and leaves him miserable, and thus a prime target for Gabe. Now, I think that people could be tempted to feel massively bad for him, and I do to a point. After all, it is very obvious the man is a victim of abuse by Audrey. She's emotionally abused him for years and kept him on the hook enough that he's desperate for love and attention. Whenever he does anything that goes against what she wants, she punishes him with abject cruelty. However, on the Chloe side of this, I feel less sorry for him because he's the one who raised her. It's made very clear that Audrey left when Chloe was young, and while she does act nasty to emulate her mother, a lot of that seems to have been fostered by Andre, who would let her get away with anything and throw his weight around so she'd always get her way. I don't think that she behaves this way to get attention from her mum either, as we see in Style Queen that when they meet again, Chloe behaves more like Andre than she does Audrey, because that's how she thinks she needs to behave to get her mother's love. She tries to appease her mother with compliments and gifts, and it takes Marinette's intervention to make Audrey see that Chloe's very similar to her. This makes it clear that her regular personality is something that was born from Andre raising her and giving her everything she ever wanted with no boundaries. Thus, I have very little sadness for this guy. It sucks to be in an abusive relationship, but isn't spoiling a child really just a type of neglect that can damage their development and personality? He's no innocent angel, no matter what the modern show tries to preach. Chloe and Audrey then fly away as he sobs on the rooftop, and I found it really funny that his whole staff are out there whilst he's crying and they're just smiling and waving, and then they leave him there alone. He's akumatized into Maledictator before we cut over to the school where Chloe flies overhead and announces via megaphone that she's leaving, whilst dropping photos of her photoshopped into pictures with the Statue of Liberty. I just love how she had these ready to go already. It's not like there's been a lot of time time between her declaring she was going to leave to Andre and then actually hopping on the chopper after all. After they fly off, the crowd briefly discusses it and asks whether it could be true before they all start celebrating. They're cheering, teachers are hugging, there's confetti and fireworks too. This section made me laugh so much because it seems clear the city and the school had these celebrations ready to go just in case Chloe ever leaves. It reminds me of how the Munchkins go absolutely wild in The Wizard of Oz as soon as the Witch of the East dies. Is this part of the annual city budget or something? Marinette is doubly happy. Without Chloe around, she no longer has to interact with her longtime bully, but she also thinks that this means there'll be far less akumatizations overall due to how many people Chloe's able to upset. Here though, we do get the other side of the coin from Adrien, because when he arrives and learns that they're celebrating Chloe being gone, he asks Marinette how they could celebrate her leaving forever, with Marinette replying that she's a brat and useless. Now here is where I did raise my eyebrows just a little bit, because if she'd replied talking about how Chloe's a bully who goes out of her way to hurt people, I would 100% be on her side here. She doesn't though. When she calls her useless, to me that is a blanket statement about the worth of her entire life as opposed to condemnation of her personality and actions. Thus, I can see why Adrien actually gets upset, because she isn't useless. She's always been good to him and was there for him as a friend when he quite literally had nobody else. It's not easy for him to forget that. That being said, I also think he probably needs to understand that Chloe has acted horrifically to the majority of her peers and brutally bullies Marinette in particular. It makes sense as to why they'd be so angry and bitter towards her to the point of hosting this type of event when they think she's gone for good. I really like the writing for this scene as it does set up an interesting moral quandary. They're not wrong for being happy that she's gone, but is the celebration and all that a bit much? The writing is a whole lot deeper here than I remember it being. We cut to Maledictator, who uses his power to force the pilot to land the chopper in the street before confronting his family. He tells Chloe that with his power he can shut down the school and banish everybody that was mean to her from Paris forever. Audrey of course is unable to rein herself in, even just a little bit, because she's so terrible. She sees Andre and has a compulsive desire to be mean to him and hurt his feelings no matter what. She quite literally makes fun of him for being akumatized and tells him that it's cringe. That being akumatized like everybody else in Paris does not make him cool or hip. Thus, Andre blasts her with an order to be devoted to the family, and suddenly she's all lovey-dovey with him. Here is where we get a real showcase that there's something really wrong in Chloe's mind. Remember, when Andre's there telling her he'll be able to use his new powers to punish her schoolmates, she's all aboard. However, once her mum's acting all sweet and loving to her dad, that's a step too far, and so she has to go and be a hero instead. It was this that made her wonder, what would Ladybug do? So far, this episode has sold me on the idea of Chloe being a true anti-hero. A person who is largely selfish and horrible in her personal life, who finds herself doing what's right and fighting for good against the odds, and along the way, slowly becomes a better person tiny piece by piece. She sneaks out of the other side of the chopper and hides in the underground, which causes Andre to realize that she's escaped. With Gabe's help, he comes up with the idea to go to the school and punish the students who he calls savages. Also, once again, Gabe, Father of the Year. This dude knows that his son is currently at school, and of all the places he could tell Maledictator to go and cause chaos, he sends him to the only place Adrien could get hurt. Back at the school, the celebration is still going in full swing, and by this point, surely it's becoming a bit much, right? I get the initial excitement, but having a synchronized dance party? The death of monsters, dictators, and serial killers has been met with less excitement than this. Hell, even the teachers are still celebrating. Alia tries to get Marinette to cheer up and remind her that Chloe absolutely sucked, but Marinette thinks she was perhaps too hard on her. It's so deeply obvious here that they intended a redemption for Chloe, it's unreal. Because Marinette is here thinking about how she might have misjudged her all this time, and that she isn't all she seems. I think this makes it clear that she was meant to be a bully, yes, but not to the extent that's later revealed when you get those flashbacks at the pool in season 5. It's just so weird to see how the writing philosophy changed, and I do wonder what the reason was. I don't believe a failed redemption was always the intention. Andre arrives via helicopter and blasts a bunch of students and staff in the courtyard with a new order to demolish the school, which they start to do, but he's most keen to find Marinette so he can banish her from Paris. She slips away to transform into Ladybug, but not before Tiki mentions that it seems that Chloe was able to get one last person akumatized before she left the city, with Marinette saying that she thinks she's partly to blame. Nah, that is just not true, and she has nothing to feel bad about in that regard. This dude was akumatized because his wife is horrible and was taking his daughter away from him, and Chloe just went along with it because she doesn't respect him as a person. After all, the idea of him getting affection from her mother was so disgusting to her that she decides she can't go along with the villain. Was the class and Marinette too harsh on Chloe during her presentation? Yes, I think that would be accurate. Yes, the person was a little bit cringy with her telling obvious lies and building herself as an important historical figure within the country, but they were really nasty to her, and the teacher should have shut it down right from the get-go. However, despite all of that, it doesn't mean that it's Marinette's fault that Chloe complained to her mum, or that her mum responded by lashing out at Andre and deciding to leave the country instead of, I don't know, calling the school and demanding some sort of resolution to all of this. So she powers up and so does Cat Noir, and they begin their battle with him, but physically, he's evenly matched with the pair of them and puts them on the ropes with his compulsion orbs, which seem to be able to hone in on you and follow you around. The heroes escape to the roof and Ladybug quickly uses her lucky charm, which gets her an abacus, which she doesn't really understand. Pretty quickly she realizes what it means, but it's too late because for some reason, Cat Noir has rushed back into the fight and is instantly mind-controlled into behaving like a real cat. So I guess this is it then. We have firmly arrived at the era where every single episode there's a new way to sideline Cat Noir Noir and make him look like a joke hero. He quite literally lasted about a minute and is now meowing on the ground. This is such bullshit, man. I know that they need a reason for Chloe to get her miraculous too, but do they have to make him seem so useless? Even in the peak of the show, this was apparently going on. Good God. In one of the creepy moments of the show's entire run, Audrey coos at him and calls him a cutie pie, getting him to rub his face on her hand. I don't get why she thinks he's an actual cat. The orders she received were to be a devoted wife and mother, not cuddle with a teenager in a leather jumpsuit and cat ears. This is one of the few times I'm just outright uncomfortable with the content of an episode, to tell you the truth. It is very strange. Andre tries to take his miraculous, but Cat Noir hisses and Audrey begs him to just let her keep him a little bit longer. He agrees and Gabe tells him not to fail or he'll take away his powers. Gabe! Time to leave your lair and do it yourself. Why are you letting this happen? Hurt him. Force him to take the miraculous so you at least have one. This is why Hawkmoth always loses. He needs to learn to cut his losses sometimes. Get one of the miraculouses, take the powers back, and try again for Ladybug another day. The dude has no concept of big picture thinking. It's all or nothing. Ladybug makes her way to Master Fu for another miraculous and decides that she needs to give Chloe another chance and give her the B miraculous because she needs somebody that isn't impressed by somebody in a position of power. So she takes it and goes off after her, whilst at the same time Maledictator, Audrey, and her pet Cat Noir go and order Marinette's parents to leave Paris forever before going back to the hotel in search of Chloe. She runs up to the roof, which is where she runs into Ladybug, who asks her what the hell even happened. Chloe at first tried to pin all the blame on Marinette, but with a little bit of light prodding from Ladybug, she starts to open up. She then tries to say that her dad simply got mad for no reason at all. However, once Ladybug makes it clear she can trust her, we have a huge moment for Chloe's character, where she tells Ladybug she knows deep down it's all her fault. She wanted to leave the school in Paris itself not because of Marinette's words, but because nobody likes her and she has no friends. She feels like a useless person. She's crying while she says all this, by the way. Ladybug tells her that nobody's useless, and Chloe tells her it's easy for you to say. After all, Ladybug is a hero who serves a true purpose. Ladybug references a documentary, and Chloe cringes because she knew it was ridiculous. Ladybug then tells her she can fix her own messes and serve a purpose if she really wants to. Of course, she does want that, and thus Ladybug hands over the Be Miraculous, with Chloe telling her that she won't disappoint her this time. Okay, so this scene apparently means jack shit now in the current canon, right? Was Chloe just lying through her teeth and being a manipulator? Look, failed redemption arcs can work, but they spend so much time on it in the season, with so many good episodes that flesh out the character, that you can't view it as anything else than a narrative fail that all roads lead to Miracle Queen. This was such a heartwarming scene that felt like it would lead to a slow reformation of Chloe in her normal persona and with her regular peers, and yet it just goes to waste. Chloe powers up and the pair go off on their adventure. It's so cute how much of a fangirl Chloe acts towards Ladybug here as well. They arrive at City Hall to find that Maledictator's taken control of the cops and turned them into a private army. Chloe tries to get him to stand down, although her change of heart hasn't led to a complete reformation just yet. I think she might have actually got him to break free if she was kind and apologetic. She does apologize, but then she starts ordering him to stand down and to make her horrible mother go back to normal, with her normal being cruel. Who in their right mind would listen to that? She also calls his powers ridiculous, which of course were not going to help matters at all. He orders them to give him their miraculous and shoots out his orbs, and so the pair go to attack him, but their every move is blocked by cops. This battle's actually pretty exciting as far as Season 2 battles go. It has epic music, a frantic pace, a lot of twists and turns. I noticed that at one point Chloe knocks some poor mind-controlled cop off the roof to fall to his death, which made me laugh, mostly out of shock. I guess she does have a way to go on the whole being a hero thing, doesn't she? She has a huge heart-to-heart with Ladybug about how she wants to make friends and be a better person, and then immediately is going full Batman throwing people off the roof. Good thing Ladybug can reverse the damage to this dude's spine. They continue to battle, and it becomes clear that it's a stalemate. Ladybug and Queen Bee can't break through the shield wall, but Maledictator can't manage to hit them with his compulsion orbs either. Thus Hawkmoth chimes in and tells them that he needs to change tactics and that people only respect absolute power. Thus he begins to power up a huge golden orb which he intends to use to mind control the entire city into becoming his slaves. Imagine being Gabe, thinking of this and suggesting he use this absolute power orb. If only he suggested it much earlier, like when Ladybug first ran away. He could have easily won off screen, as there would have been no way for Ladybug to avoid the attack. Although, wouldn't this also mind control Gabe in his lair? Regardless, you just know this is something that would be keeping Gabe up at night thinking, what if? Instead of trying to think of something new, the heroes keep trying to break through the shields, although I would argue that surely they'd be able to brute force the riot police, right? We've seen before that becoming a superhero grants you a measure of super strength, and so I don't get why they're struggling. Even then, you'd think that maybe at this point Marinette would think, whew, maybe I should use my lucky charm to give myself a chance to win the fight. She finally does use a lucky charm and gets an absurd giant gun. Now, obviously being a superhero, she's not going to be using a gun here. Can you imagine those headlines? Parisian superhero slaughters mind-controlled victims with giant gun. It's not something that would inspire much hope within the general population. Instead, after a brief planning session, she takes the gun's laser pointer and tosses the rest away. Queen Bee activates her venom to be ready for when she needs to attack her dad, whilst Ladybug uses the laser pointer to get the attention of Cat Noir, who genuinely believes he's a proper cat. I do have to wonder whose cat they based this portrayal on though. When Maledictator first arrived and attacked the school, it was daytime as students were still there. Cat Noir was turned into a cat almost immediately immediately afterwards, and now it's night. Clearly, a long time has passed in the boss battle. Thus, I'm shocked that he's even still with them to begin with. As a cat, he still clearly doesn't like Maledictator at all, and was hissing and trying to scratch him when he got close earlier to try to steal his Miraculous. If this was my cat, she would have decided that I was being way too needy having her with me all day, and if she doesn't know somebody, she's not going to be hanging out with them. Cat Noir is the friendliest cat in the world in my experience. He isn't immune to cat kryptonite though, a laser pointer. She uses the laser pointer to get Cat Noir to knock all the police off the roof, and they don't do anything about it. I do wonder why they don't react at all. Is it because he ordered them to be his shield and thus they only react when he's in trouble? Does that mean if Ladybug and Queen Bee had simply tried to beat up on the cops, they would have lost more easily, as opposed to them going straight at Andre again and again? It's pretty brutal, although I did laugh that they go out of their way to show that none of the cops fell to their death from the vantage point, except that first guy. They're all in piles or clinging onto the ledges for dear life. This is where Queen Bee enters the fight again, and she leaps at Maledictator. He's unable to react, seeing he's charging up his attack, and so he gets frozen, his sash is destroyed, and the Akuma is cleansed. After this, Ladybug reverses all the damage of the battle, and Andre is back to being absolutely terrorized by his horrible wife. Chloe powers down and fist bumps with Ladybug, seemingly having come to a greater understanding about herself and what being a hero truly means. Tell me again about how it was always intended for her to fail her redemption arc. For those that think I'm going on about it a bit much, I will say that I reserve the right to be massively salty about this in my Season 2 and 3 retrospective reviews. That's just how it is. Cat Noir apologizes to Ladybug for being useless this time around, which sadly will become a bit of a trend going forward. It's just so deeply unsatisfying, you know? In isolation it's fine, I'm not that much of a fanboy, but I'm seeing again and again that they just keep going back to that well. Just in the last couple of videos we've had Style Queen, Anansi, and now this. It's actually rather sad because I think it does stunt his character development quite a lot, and he doesn't get to be part of the big moments. When Ladybug returns to give the Bee Miraculous to Master Fu, he questions her as to whether she really thinks that Chloe has what it takes to be a proper superhero. There's no discussion of people knowing her identity or anything of the sort. It does feel like that was a plot point they added in Season 3 just to lead to her betrayal, doesn't it? People knowing who she is shouldn't really matter because she doesn't keep the Miraculous with her anyway, you know? Thus it doesn't change anything at all. It's just weird. Marinette even throws her a party openly celebrating being a hero. The whole idea behind this being that perhaps by being a superhero that sometimes saves Paris, she can also work to save herself and reform her behavior. We even see this starting to work when she cleans up her own mess and lets her butler rest, whilst also being happy Sabrina gave her a hug. She isn't perfect, but she's taking those first steps. Now knowing what we know though, this whole storyline constantly feels like wasted minutes because it leads to nothing, and she's replaced by a half-sister who is instead implied to have faced the same hard choices and made the right ones in the end off-screen. This is where the episode ends, and in isolation, it is a banger. Chloe's arc is top tier here, although there is a low light of Cat Noir continuing the trend of being increasingly wasted across the episodes. I think the main problem with this episode though is that we know where it leads, and it takes a classic episode and tarnishes it somewhat. After all, this is pretty much peak Good Chloe. With all that being said though, these have been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the episode? Did you like it? Hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.